welcome back to We're Right Here. I'm Karen Richards with CNB Bank, and today I'm so happy to have with us John Menard. John, I think your official title at the bank is Senior Vice President, Senior Banking Advisor, but really I
Right,
think
right.
you're the mortgage legend in our community. And how have we gone? I think this is episode 12 for us, so I don't know how we've gone a whole year before we had you on.
Yeah.
So give us a little bit of your story. How did you get into the mortgage business? How long have you been in it?
Well, I didn't start out my career in financial services at all. I actually have a degree in law enforcement and criminal justice from the University of Maryland.
I did
And
not know that.
yeah, and so
Mhm.
for 4 years I was a what they called a background investigator with the DC Superior Court. And I'd spent 4 years in there, but prior to that, while I was in college, I had worked my way through college in sales.
Mhm.
So after about 4 years of chasing criminals around, I said, "Boy, it's got to be an easier way to make a
Yeah.
living than that." And I said, "I think I'm going to get back into the sales world." And I was had my car insurance and house insurance with Nationwide at that
Mhm.
time. And my agent, I happened to call him about something, and we got chatting. And I said I was thinking about changing careers, and he said, "Oh, you ever think about being an insurance agent?" So I said, "No, no, I hadn't thought about it." Ended up going to work with Nationwide, and at that time, Nationwide did insurance and mortgages, but primarily the insurance side of it. So I was an agent for 10 years, and then somehow I let them bamboozle me into going into corporate management for 3 years, which I didn't particularly like the big corporate world at all.
Mhm.
So after those 3 years, I decided, now I'm going to go back out, and I like the mortgage side a lot better.
Mhm.
So I just said I'm just going to dedicate to mortgages, and that would have been 1990.
Mhm.
So that's 35 years ago, and so I had some experience before that, but Nationwide did limited mortgages, but
Mhm.
so that's how I ended up in that industry.
I didn't know that about you either. I used to sell insurance a little bit. So when I was
Yeah.
going to college, I got my property and casualty license and sold insurance here in Berkeley County for a
Oh,
short amount of time. So
oh, I didn't
we
know
have that
that
in
either.
common. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes a great salesperson?
I think for me, making a great salesperson is the ability to uh, communicate with the individuals that you're dealing with, your
Mhm.
clients, and finding out exactly what they're looking to accomplish, and establishing that relationship so they know that you're looking out for their interest as well as yours. I mean, we are in a business to make money,
Mhm.
obviously, but at the same time, we're part of our job, and a huge part of it is to make sure we're doing the right thing for the client.
Mhm.
And by doing that, to me, it's very hard to do unless you get to know the client.
Mhm.
So I'm still a real old dinosaur in this business. I don't like to do the stuff online like the younger folks like to do. I always try to meet my clients, sit with them, develop the relationship so I understand really what they're trying to accomplish. So to make sure I'm putting them in the right product that gets them
Mhm.
where they're looking to be.
But don't you think that's what's helped with your success over all the years is just the personal touch, and you want to get to know your client?
Yeah, I think banking is still a relationship business. I mean,
Mhm.
there's obviously a lot of technology involved these days, and most of it for the good. I mean, it
Mhm.
helps us become more efficient and so forth. But at the same time, as we lose the human touch in these relationships, I think it takes away a lot. And especially when you're talking about big purchase situations like a mortgage. I mean, that's one of the biggest investments anybody's going to make
Yeah.
in their lifetime. For most people, it is the biggest.
Mhm.
So I still don't like the idea of doing all the transactions online because
Mhm.
you just don't get to really know that person and know exactly what they need. And the fact that I've built relationships and believe so much in relationships, I've done now, and I think it's hit four fairly recently, 3 generations where I did the purchase many years ago for the grandparents, and then later the children of the grandparents,
Yeah.
and now the children of them. So it's
Yeah.
three generations, 4 times over, and that would have never happened if I wasn't developing relationships.
Right.
Right. So
And you're still meeting customers in person, going to closings in person?
I am. It's very interesting. We just met with a doctor, or I met with the doctor on Tuesday morning over at the Menard Hospital.
Hmm.
He had called about wanting to talk about construction loans, and I said, "Well, let's sit down and talk together." So sometimes doctors have very busy schedules, of
Yeah.
course. So I said, "I'll tell you what, tell me your free time at the hospital. I'll come over, sit down, and talk with you, and so forth." And it's a very substantial project, but so I sat with him, and he had talked to a couple other lenders as well. But his comment to me was nobody offered to come and sit down and talk with
Mm.
me and walk through the process and
Right,
understand exactly what I was doing. So,
right.
and then he said, "I'm going to move my banking relationship over." He said, "Is that something I can do online?" I said, "Yeah, technically, maybe." I said, "But
But
what I want to do is bring the branch manager to the
Mhm.
branch right near the hospital over, sit down, talk with you, make sure we're putting you in the banking products that you really are looking for."
Mhm.
So we have that set up for next week.
Plus, then to meet the branch manager face to face. So then, when he comes
Okay.
into the branch, he's got a familiar face, somebody that he can talk to and he's met before.
Yeah, and that's so important. I hear, and I'm sure you do as well, nothing but great comments from my clients with our retail
Hmm.
staff. It's amazing. When we opened the first branch over in Hagerstown several years ago, I called a couple people I knew and said, "Hey, we're getting this branch started in Hagerstown. Help me out. Let me get some deposits over here and so forth." And I had one of the gentlemen the other day who came in that first, second week and opened a couple CDs. And I ran into him I guess just a couple days ago now. And he said, back about 9 years ago, you had called me and said, "Hey, do this over in Hagerstown, help you guys get off the ground." He lives over in Waynesboro.
Hmm.
And he said, "I did that, to get you going because you asked me." He said, "But I stayed because of your people." He said,
Right,
"They're fabulous."
right.
Yeah.
Well, most of my banking experience is in retail, so I'm a
All right.
retail girly at heart for sure. So, you've been such a huge part of CMB Bank's growth, and you and Mark have worked together for years and at different community banks too. And now we're opening our newest location on Pennsylvania Avenue in Hagerstown, and I'm sure you take great pride in our growth and how we've been able to continue to grow throughout our markets. So, just talk a little bit about that, about your impact to the team, and seeing our successes. And I'm sure you're proud of that growth.
I really am. And you're right. Mark and I have been together for 25 years
Mm-hmm.
now, three different community banks.
Mm-hmm.
I started with him back in the very beginning of 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, just a couple things fell into place logistically, and he had called me. I was at a bank down in Carroll County, Maryland, and it had just been sold. And he heard I might be available, and he made a call and said, "Hey, you interested in coming up here and helping redo this mortgage department?" And
Mm-hmm.
so we did, and we started together then. And then after about 7 years, the bank got started getting too big.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I've always, since I left that corporate structure, I've been a community bank guy
Yeah.
because that's how we can get things done.
Mhm.
So then we moved to another community bank and then to CMB, which is really the epitome of a community bank. And so Mark and I's territory really was Washington County, much more for me than West Virginia. I made contacts over in West Virginia, but Washington County still was kind of my home. So we opened Hagerstown, and we, of course, as far as lenders go, I brought on a few lenders since
Mhm.
then, but we're very careful about that because we have a culture that we're extremely proud of, and everybody doesn't fit that culture.
Mhm.
There's many mortgage folks I've talked to from a production level would be nice to add to the
Sure.
staff, but they just don't quite fit the community bank culture. And in the community bank, our we say all the time, local matters, and it matters. And we get involved with the community. We get them to know us. We know them, and so just watching it continue to grow has been amazing because
Mhm.
the growth in the 12 and a half years I've been here has
Yeah.
been pretty substantial.
Yeah.
And Frank, and because of that, we've been able to attract other bankers
Hmm.
that fit that culture
Hmm.
that left their institutions to come with us,
Hmm.
commercial, retail people, and so forth. So forth.
I had an advisory board member tell me just in the last week that out of all of the banks that he deals with, CMB Bank does community better than any of the others. So, how do we do that, in your opinion? How does CMB do community so well?
I think it's because starting, at the success or failure of any organization starts at the top.
Mm.
And Mark Harrell believes in community more than anybody, and and that just permeates through the organization. So our folks are involved in so many nonprofit
Yeah.
boards and activities, and we take a lot of pride in that. Again, these clients are just not clients, or our
Yeah.
friends, they're our neighbors.
Hmm.
We sit next to them at baseball and football games and
Hmm.
so forth. And and I think it's any institution's moral obligation to give back, and CMB does it very well because it's just ingrained in all of us that
Hmm.
we want to be part of that community wherever we're doing business. That's where we
Hmm.
want to be part of.
And then for you, I know you serve on a number of boards, have served on probably countless boards, and you have a
Yeah,
new one coming up, I think.
yeah.
So, how do you select which boards you're going to serve on?
That's a great question. And when I first came to Hagerstown, I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
I didn't even know Mark.
Yeah.
But an interesting aside to that story is back when Mark was in college, he worked as an intern for my wife in the
Didn't know
insurance
that.
business. Yeah, this was back in the well, I don't want to say their ages, but it was in the late '80s anyway. Um, so Mark's brother worked in that
Hmm.
agency. He
Hmm.
came in the summer as an intern and worked with my wife Susie.
Hmm.
So she actually knew Mark from back in the
I didn't know
'80s.
she worked in insurance.
She did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
she was a licensed agent as
Okay.
well. Yeah. So it's I guess going on the nonprofit boards for me was a way to start understanding the community and who did what. So not too long after I had gotten involved in the nonprofits in Washington County, they have what they call the gaming commission,
Hmm.
and the gaming commission gets funds from different activities. When organizations have some kind of a party or an event, they do these pull tab tickets
Hmm.
and so
Hmm.
forth, and half of the proceeds of that go to nonprofits. So I sat as the chair of that gaming commission, and I would look at all the requests from the nonprofits, which would be 100 and some requests a year we'd look at. So there I was able to look at all the different nonprofits and say, well, this is the one that's kind of really sticking to the mission and
Hmm.
doing missions I believe in, which is was a lot of children's
Hmm.
type help
Hmm.
missions and abuse,
Hmm.
addiction. Those those are the type of things that I was very dear to me.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how, and I kind of handpicked the boards based on that.
And you have to pick them that way, don't you think? You have to pick the ones that really you're passionate about. That's where you do the best work.
Yeah, you
Hmm.
absolutely do because in the nonprofit world, some of the boards can be fairly large,
Hmm.
and not to disparage anybody from going on the boards, but there's a lot of people go on boards just to say they're on a board and their names on the
Yeah.
letterhead of the board or
Yeah.
something. But that's not really helping the cause or
Hmm.
helping the organization, and it's not even helping them really. So
Hmm.
if you're not getting on something you're passionate about, you're probably not going to do a
Yeah.
real good job on that board.
Agreed. Right.
Yeah, and my wife was very active in boards as well, so that got ingrained to our son Jake, who works for the bank, and he's on boards now. So it's
Hmm.
yeah.
So I'm sure Jake joining the team is a proud dad moment for you.
Yeah, it really is because he had coached college football
Yeah.
for several years, and then fell in love and decided he had to settle down. He couldn't keep moving around the country,
Hmm.
so and Mark has known him since he's been a very young, obviously, and had always wanted to hire him. So I said,
Yeah.
Mark, I think you have an opportunity here. So yeah, he came aboard a year and a half ago, learned the mortgage business, and Yeah, he's doing very well. I'm very proud of him. Of course, he says now, I wish I'd paid more attention growing up to what you were doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
right.
hindsight, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've taught him the importance of building your referral network, and how that's so important to your success. So how did you do that over the years?
Well, again, it's relationship
Mm,
things. You go in and sit with the realtors, the builders, and you talk to them. And it takes some time generally,
yeah.
because there's a lot of
Mhm,
trust issues involved and so forth. You get a realtor, when I was really, at the height of producing businesses, I might have done 20, 30 settlements in a month. That realtor probably had one every 2 months. So
mhm,
that deal was precious to them.
right.
And they had to feel comfortable that if they turned that customer over to you, you would take care of them and make sure you get to the settlement table. Same with builders.
Mhm,
They can only build so many houses, so they want to make sure the whole situation runs smoothly. So it became just a matter of continue to sit down, talk with them, talk about what we could do, how we could do it, and so forth. And that's the same thing I try to impart with all our
yeah.
lenders is
Mhm,
it's still a relationship business,
mhm,
and if you ever lose part of that, you're going to lose the real
mhm,
excuse me, the real emphasis of this business, and
right.
then you're going to lose yourself in it
Yeah,
because
right.
if you don't if see I tell young folks you can do well if you're in the mortgage business. But when the mortgage business is in you, that's when you're gonna be
Mm,
successful, and
mhm,
and that's all part of knowing the people you're dealing with and what they need and what we can do to help them. And sometimes, many times in my career, I've said to somebody, "Hey, I could do this for you, but I know somebody that's got a product that's actually better." And I would make a call and say, "Hey, why don't you talk to these folks?"
You've told me those stories before, and then there have been times where you've done that, but then the customer later will still come back to you because you gave them that honest advice.
Yeah, I
Mhm,
think, and that's what people are looking for.
mhm,
It's like because situations change all the time,
mm,
and just because this product at that time might not have worked for them, as their situations change, then we may have a product that works better or at
yeah,
least equally as well,
right,
and they come back.
right.
Yeah, sure.
How's the business changed over the years? So you said, is this 35 years in the mortgage business?
Yeah, I'm a little longer considering, but
Yeah.
predominantly, yeah,
And you
that's right.
mentioned technology already. Is that probably the biggest change to the business?
Technology, yeah, products have changed
Mhm.
slightly, and they come out with different products and so forth, so you're always learning those kind of things, but the essence of the business hasn't changed a lot.
Yeah.
Technology definitely changed it. I mean, back before they had, what we call loan operation
Mhm.
systems or origination
Mhm.
systems, you would take everything by hand, and then it would go so settlements took significantly longer. Um, I don't know that was a bad thing, but you get into a society where, expediency becomes the goal. So
Yeah.
now, we used to get contracts from realtors for 75 days settlements, and now we get them for 25 days,
Mm.
right? So technology helps you accomplish that.
Mhm.
But other than that, it's still basically the same. You're
Yeah.
trying to find the right product for the client that fits their needs and is actually the best product for them.
Mhm. So what's the year been like for the mortgage team at CMB?
Well, the last couple years have been challenging. When I first dabbled in this business back with the insurance
Mhm.
business, we're talking early 80s, and the rates were 16.5, 17%, which were,
Wow.
very high
Right.
rates, right? Of course, houses cost less,
Mhm.
so, but the impact was still the
Mhm.
same when you look at it that way. But so when the rates dropped back here, especially during the COVID years
Yeah.
when it dropped very low, lower than I ever thought I'd ever see in the business. And then when they started back to normalize, people started, oh, the rates are high, the rates are high. But if you look, they started tracking mortgage rates in 1971. So at that time the rates were in about the 7 3/8 range, and a lot of people then said, "Oh, that's high. I'm waiting for the rates to come down." And had they actually waited for the rate to come down, it would have been 1993.
Wow.
So you can imagine what happened to the prices of
Mm-hmm.
houses by then. So
Mm-hmm.
they sure didn't gain anything doing
Right.
that.
Right.
But so you can't outguess the market. But the average rate over that time since '71 is in the mid sevens. So we're not really in a historically high rate,
Mm-hmm.
but we are for what a lot of the younger folks,
Sure.
particularly, are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a little bit more of a challenge, but our teams responded really well. And I think they have because, again, they build relationships.
Yeah,
So
I think so too.
it
So
is.
if you had to predict what 2026 would be like for the mortgage team, what do you think?
I actually think it's going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
This is a tough economy to figure out
Mm-hmm.
because the tariffs are on, tariffs are off. What's
Mm-hmm.
happening here? How's that going to affect this?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of hard to really figure. But the Fed met yesterday and dropped rates another quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Now that only affects short-term lending, credit cards, car
Mm-hmm.
payments, things like that. But they sometimes will eventually trickle into the longer-term rates. Sometimes they go the other way. The
Mm-hmm.
long-term rates go up when the
Mm-hmm.
short-term rates come down. But I think we're going to see either one of two things. Either the rates drop some, which will get people more comfortable, or people are starting to settle in because we've been seeing these rates now for 2, 3, 4 years. So now people are starting to say, well, this is the new norm. So,
Right.
we want a house. This is what we
This
need
is
to
what we're going
do.
to have to do. Right.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to your law enforcement days because I didn't know that about you. So
Yeah.
can you give us a story? Like what was one of the most exciting chases or something that you worked on?
Uh, oh, I tried not to chase anybody.
Even back
If you
then?
ever see me run, I
Well,
didn't have
this was
to.
like 40 years ago.
Oh, longer than that, unfortunately. Yeah, most of the stories didn't involve that kind of stuff. It involved going into prisons and those type of things. And I guess one story that kind of sticks in my mind. I had a young fellow thinking about going into law enforcement, and he said, "I understand you're gonna." The supervisor of my area had told him to get in touch with me.
Hmm.
He said, "I understand you're going into a certain prison to interview an inmate." And he was in for serious, very serious stuff. And I said, "I am." I said, "I'm going to go on a Sunday because you don't have as much crowd in there
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so forth."
Hmm.
And he said, "Can I go with you?" And I said, "Sure." So we go to the prison and we come through the back door because the main entrance isn't open, and you have to go through the guard gates, and they check your service revolver there because you can't carry that into the prison. So
Hmm.
you go in, and in the first step you go in, and the steel gate opens. You go in, and then it slams shut behind you, and you're
Hmm.
trapped between these two steel gates. And he probably jumped 6 inches.
I
He
bet.
says, "Oh
Hmm.
my!"
Hmm.
And I said, "Oh, you'll get used to that." And we started walking through it, and to get to the interview room, I had to go through the kitchen. Well, the inmates work in the kitchen, so this guy was just rehashing this story with me maybe a month ago, and he says we walked in through that kitchen, and all these inmates have knives and all that. He said, "Man," he said, I'm like trembling." And he
Yeah.
said, I said, "Well, you get used to it after a while."
You were used to it by then.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So they have a guard at one end of the kitchen and a guard at the other end
Hmm.
standing there. So you walk through the kitchen and go through the guard, and we did the interview, and we're coming back, and as we're coming back, one of the inmates said, "Menard, Menard." I looked over and he says, "You got to help me get out of here." And I said, "I'm the one put you here. I'm not going
You
to
get
get you
out?
out." But I turned around and this guy was gone. He was standing over by the guard.
Oh,
He
he was
said,
done. Yeah.
"Yeah," he says, "You got an inmate yelling your name. He's got a knife in his hand." He said,
Yeah. I'm
I
standing by
said,
the
"Hi."
guard.
Well, he wasn't going to bother me.
Mm. So how long did he work in the business then?
He didn't go in.
He didn't go in.
No,
He
he
changed his mind.
changed his mind. He said, "Yeah, I'm not made for this." I
Right.
said,
Yeah.
"I don't know anybody's made for it." I
No.
said, "You get used
How
to it."
did you get into that?
Well, As I said earlier, I had a degree in law enforcement from the University of Maryland.
Uh-huh.
And so my last semester as a senior was an internship
Mm-hmm.
situation,
Okay.
and I did an internship there. And then when I finished the internship, they said, "Hey, do you want to come to work here?" And I said, and I thought about going to the different, because I lived in Maryland at the
Mm-hmm.
time, and I said, "Oh, let me see about Maryland." Well, D.C. was at that time run by the federal government. They didn't have what they called home rule, so they didn't have a mayor or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. So, frankly, the federal government paid a lot more.
Yeah.
I said, "Well, if I'm going to do the same thing, I'll do it down
Might as
there."
well.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did interesting stuff. I mean, we worked on the Watergate defendants.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we did those backgrounds on
Mm-hmm.
those. So yeah, you hit a lot of the cases, and by my fourth year, I was doing pretty much all the murder cases.
Yeah.
Right. So they're the actually easiest cases to do because at the end of the investigation, you know the guy's going to jail. You know,
Right.
you're not making any real hard decisions there.
Right.
So
That's quite a career change then to insurance and then mortgage. So give us one of your favorite mortgage stories. So you already mentioned doing kind of the multi-generational mortgages. I'm sure those are some of your favorite stories over the years, but can you give us
yeah.
one specifically where you felt you really made an impact?
Yeah, so just a couple nights ago, Jake and I and Mark were invited to a realtor's annual party
Mm-hmm.
over at Fountainhead Country Club. And the realtor there is Cynthia Sullivan,
Mm-hmm.
and she was telling people the story. She said, "You know how I got to work with John 20 some years ago?" She said, "I called him, and there was a gentleman who wanted to buy this house, and the house didn't actually have running water. It had cisterns and and nobody would finance it. And his wife had terminal cancer, and she always she had never owned a house. She wanted to have a house before she died,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted so badly to buy this house for her. And so I called John, and John listened to the story, sat down and talked to the gentleman, and called me back and said, "I'll do that loan."
Mm-hmm.
So we did that loan. The people, unfortunately, the lady passed away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure she ever got to move in the house,
No.
but to her that made all the difference in the world because
Mm-hmm.
we as I said earlier, we heard of what the client needed
Yeah.
and what he did, and we were willing to take the chance to do it for him.
And as a
So,
community bank,
as a
you could do
community
that.
bank,
Mm-hmm.
you don't do that in the corporate world,
No.
right? Yeah,
Mm-mm.
and that's why community banks are important to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're going to sit down. We have to make smart decisions, but
Right.
at the same time, we can make decisions that might not make sense to the corporate world,
Mm-hmm.
make sense to us.
Right.
We know
Right.
the players, we know the people, we know
Mm-hmm.
the development, we know a lot more about it, and we get to know, you know, lending when you're lending money to people. Of course, the whole idea is they're going to pay you back, right?
Right.
And you look at how are they going to pay you back? Do they make enough money to pay you back? Does their credit history indicate they'll pay you back? Those
Mm-hmm.
those type of things that everybody looks at. But when you're in a community bank, you look even a little deeper. You know, sometimes those things aren't on a perfect plane that people say, "Oh, this is a slam dunk loan." But the character of the person comes in,
Right.
and if you don't get to know them, you don't
Right.
know that. You
Right.
know,
But you can look at each individual
each
application.
individual,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
everyone's different,
Mm-hmm.
and people aren't numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very interesting. I tell the young folks this. My Social Security card, my original Social Security card from back when I first got my first job, I was 15, and it says right on it, "Not to be used for identification purposes." Right? They don't say that anymore
They
because
don't.
Social Security, that's what everybody uses for
Mm-hmm.
identification. Right? But people aren't numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't get to know them, you don't really know the story.
Right. It's the same at the bank with our team, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Nobody's just a number. We know everyone individually.
Absolutely. And that's why when people come into our branches
Mm-hmm.
and like I was telling the story earlier about the
Yeah.
friend, I mean, he walks into the bank, they know his name, they know, they talk to him about what's going on. They know that stuff.
Hmm.
We have a realtor over in Waynesboro, uh, one of the predominant realtors there, who banks with us in the Hagerstown office. And I saw him in one day, and he came in, and I went out to say hi to him. And I says, "What you doing here?" He said, "Oh, just brought some cookies by for the girls." He wasn't doing any banking. He
Just
just
dropping off some
just
cookies.
dropping off some
Perfect.
cookies. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So if you weren't making mortgage loans, what would you be doing instead?
If I wasn't doing mortgage loans,
Hmm.
you mean besides lying on the beach in Key
Hey,
West
there you
right now,
go. That was my next
when it's
question. What's your favorite
30
vacation spot?
degrees out?
Yeah, it's got to be better than here, 30 and snowing. Yeah.
Yeah, we just left a builder up in Pennsylvania, and they said, "Oh, that new office looks great. We can't
It's
wait to come in
gorgeous.
and see it."
Hmm.
I said, "Wait till you see our next office."
Hmm.
And they said, "Where's that?" And I said, "We're opening in Key West."
I want to go.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I said, "We're going to have plenty of
Yeah,
volunteer
you're gonna have
work."
lots of people want to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'd be selling something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like I said. When I worked my way through college selling, I figured that's what I like to do. Like, I
Hmm.
like to sit with folks and talk to them. And
Hmm.
so when I trained a couple of the young lenders we have now, they would shadow me on my interviews,
Yeah.
and they would say, after people left, they said, "You spent like 20, 25 minutes and the word mortgage never came up.
Right.
You're talking about who they are, what they do, where they have
Right.
been, that."
Right. Just
I
getting to
said,
know them.
"Yeah." I
Hmm.
said, one of them, we were doing a construction loan. People signed all the papers, application and all that stuff. And as they're getting to the door, they said, "Oh, by the way, what's the interest rate?"
Never even asked.
I had
Never
never even
asked before.
talked.
It didn't even come up.
Because it's, again, it's the relationships is, to me, that's what jazzes me up. Getting to
Yeah.
know the people, what they're about, and they become friends.
Hmm.
It's not, they're not just clients anymore. They become
Hmm.
friends. So,
You and Susie like to travel a good bit.
yeah.
What's your favorite spot?
Boy, that's hard to say. There's so many great places in the world, and we've been very fortunate. A lot of it in her previous job before she retired
Yeah.
was, she did a lot of world
Hmm.
international travel.
Hmm.
So we've been all over. And it's hard to pick a spot, because there are just so many great ones. But I think, and we'd like to cruise a lot,
Hmm. Me
so
too.
that way you're getting to pop on a few different,
Hmm.
islands or whatever.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, I agree. That's
I
a good
tell
way to
yeah.
see a few different places by taking a cruise. Hmm.
It is. I mean, I like Europe a lot.
Hmm.
I like Europe, but I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, Key West is still my
Key
favorite
West is your
spot.
favorite?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love Key West.
What's your favorite local restaurant? You have a favorite in Hagerstown or even in Martinsburg?
It's there's some pretty good restaurants around.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think in probably in Hagerstown, if I said what my favorite restaurant is, it's probably going to be Bistro
Hmm.
11. As
Good
far as
one.
restaurants go.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of good ones over there,
Yeah. Yeah.
Martinsburg, and Kitsy's.
Hmm.
But tell you the truth, I just soon go to some of these little small mom and
Yeah.
pop
Yeah. Me
places.
too. Right.
Yeah, I prefer those,
Right.
So it's and there's one in Hagerstown called Dolce. It's
Hmm.
the Romanian lady runs it, but
Okay.
she does a lot of Italian dishes and so forth, and just real small, 5, 6 tables maybe,
Hmm.
mismatched kind of tables,
Right. Yeah.
but the
Really
food's
good
great.
food.
Yeah,
Hmm.
probably we probably go there more, but they don't sell wine. So,
What's your favorite wine?
well, I drink if when I'm drinking wine, it's Cabernet Sauvignon
Okay.
red. My wife drinks white,
Hmm.
so
Yeah. So, for someone that's looking to get into the mortgage business, what kind of advice do you give?
you have to make sure that you understand in the mortgage business there's no such thing as a 9 to 5.
Mm-mm.
People don't buy houses on schedule, right?
Right.
So you're have to be very flexible with your time. So you may have a lot more flexibility during the day than you might in the evening, right?
Mhm.
And weekends, because a
Mhm.
lot of sales happen on weekends. And if your phone's not on 24/7, you're not going to get that following from the builders and realtors because they need somebody to they can get hold of.
Yeah.
I got a call the other night. It was around 10 something, and the realtor was at that party Tuesday. She's
Mhm.
one of Cynthia Sullivan's realtors. Apologized. I said, "You don't apologize to me. You apologize when you stop calling me, but
Right.
but not
Right.
but not before." Story with our boss. He and I were on vacation down in Florida in
Mhm.
Orlando, and yeah, I guess it was 9:30, quarter 10, something like that. And he had developed some kind of allergy, and he had some stuff on his back. He needed to go to the emergency room or urgent care or something. And he says, "Hey, this is, can you take?" I said, "Well, I'm in the middle of taking an
A
application.
call.
I'm taking an application. As soon as I finish it up,
I'll get you to the ER as soon as I'm done working.
I'll get you
Yeah.
there." Yeah,
Mhm.
but he understands that's the business, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it can be hard to balance sometimes, right? It's like you said, it's not for everyone.
It's not, and
Mhm.
and it takes, and if you're married, have a significant other,
Mhm.
it takes them.
Mhm.
If you don't have the right person who understands that, it can be challenging as well,
Mhm.
because you're going to be impinging on their time,
Yeah.
as well as yours.
Right.
But again, you have some other flexibilities and so forth. So
Mhm.
you have to love the fact that you're going to help people, achieve something that they really want. You
Mhm.
know.
So what's your secret? How do you stay so young after all these years in the business? You haven't slowed down a bit, it seems. How do you do it?
Oh, I tell you, I don't know if I haven't slowed down any,
Mhm.
but somebody was asking me this like night before last over at Fountainhead.
Mhm.
They said, "How do you keep going like that?" And I
Yeah.
said, I tell you, I think it's the people I surround myself with, because I've got the young lenders. I got the Sammy
Mhm.
and Jenny and
Yeah.
Jacob, and
Yeah.
well, they're all younger than me. In fact, probably everybody in Falling Waters is younger than me, but uh, you stay around them, and you hear the young things, and
Yep. Mhm.
you just, because I don't have enough hobbies if I stopped, right?
Mhm.
But I said to Mark, very sincerely, well, not maybe a year ago, I said, "Here's what you got to promise me." I said, "I don't want to be the guy that's hanging on at the end and who's not
Yeah.
contributed." He said, "Well, you're nowhere near that." I
No.
said, "No, but if you see it, then you got to tell me
Let you
because
know.
that's the time to stop, right?"
Yeah.
But I still think I've got gas in the tank and
Mhm.
things to offer, and
Mhm.
some young lenders that can keep growing from it.
Yep.
So
I think so
yeah,
too.
that keeps me going.
I think so too. Well, what have we missed? Anything we didn't cover?
I don't think so. I just think it's such, you talked about that, the title senior banking
Mhm.
advisor, and just like yourself, when you're in a small community bank, you wear more than one hat.
Yeah.
So although my primary duty is to lead the sales effort in mortgages, you and I both are part of senior leadership team. I'm on the loan committee,
Mhm.
those things. You're on committees.
Mhm.
We do a lot of different things.
Mhm.
And I think the senior part is just because I'm old. That's why senior banking
Maybe that's true
advisor.
for me too. It's because I'm old. I'm not the young one anymore.
You
But and
had,
I think I told you not too long ago that I've just always had that desire to do more and do something else. And
well, it's interesting because when I first met you 12 and a half years
mhm.
ago, you were over in
Yep, I
Martinsburg,
remember it.
assistant
Yep.
manager, and
Mhm.
we talked for a little while. Mark
Mhm.
had brought me around,
Yep.
and I said, Mark, my gut is that young lady's got a long way to go here. She's gonna do something.
Well, thank
So
you.
yeah, and you proved me right. So how
Thank you.
good. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure. So thanks for joining us today and giving us a little bit of your time.
Karen, thank you. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Yep, absolutely. All righty. That does it. Join us next time for We're Right Here.